And welcome everyone back to day 2 of our CEO Time Warp. I hope you're starting to experience a radical shift. We talked about these yesterday, to going from managing time to multiplying it, from just spending it. Yes, some vitamin D. I just got some of that too, Katie. I was just out on the deck enjoying that. Some from spending it to scaling it. And here's the thing. It's very simple math. Your input determines your outcome, right? Your time is what leads to your ROTI. And every time I talk about ROTI, return on time invested, I want you to be thinking in your head, hours and dollars, hours and dollars, because the ROTI is measured in those two things. It's also measured in impact as well, right? And how many of you would like to scale the dollars, right? Drop in the chat if you would like to scale that, right? And remember, we talked about this yesterday. Like when you are scaling the revenue, that is also scaling the reach and impact that you are making. And so I want to ask a question before we get started, and that is this. What skill do you think you need to scale your revenue? What skill do you think you need to scale your revenue? Drop that in the chat. What is it that is the key that you need to figure out in order to do this? Consistency. Ooh, I love it. That's a good one. Focus. An extrovert skill. Okay. Maybe. Love it. There are a lot of things we could put in these blanks, right? And here's the thing. We can look for all kinds of things out there, like, right, more sales skills, more offer creation skills, more leads skills. I love those. Thank you for sharing those, right? You can look for all of these other things, right? The more social media strategies, more email strategies, more marketing strategies, more sales strategies, but that alone is not enough because you need to know what to do, when to do it, and how it's moving you towards that growth goal. Okay. This is why time scaling is the foundational skill. Like, this is the key to everything. You lay this foundation first, then you can layer in all the rest. Okay. And we're going to be talking today. I love that Christy mentioned visibility and leads because here's the thing. You can build an amazing program, but just because you build it, do they come? Anyone ever found like just because you put it out in the world, all of a sudden people came flocking? Probably not, right? And so, yes, I mean, we have to be having those conversations, but it all comes down to our time. Because if and until we learn to scale our time, you will never be able to scale your business because you won't be doing these things with the focus, with the consistency, with the, like this is moving my business forward. Right. So I want you to think about what we're doing this week as a three-legged stool. Okay. And so I drew a little triangle here. And if you actually look in your workbook, I already have a triangle for you. And I already have the sides filled in. We'll be looking at this more deeply on Friday, but I want you to have this picture in your head because if you're like me, like a picture, like sticks there. Okay. Think of this like a three-legged stool. Okay. So in the middle, let me pick a different color for that, is what we want, which is the roadie. And that roadie, remember we said is going to be hours plus dollars. Okay. So what I would love for you to do yesterday, if you joined us or watched the replay, I asked you to write down what your desired roadie is. How many hours do you want to be working on your business? And how much would you per week? And how much would you like to be bringing in per month in revenue? Okay, so I want you to write that number down again, those two numbers right in front of you. I want you keeping these in front of you every day this week. Okay, so the key to this is not just going and looking at all these other things, because if you don't get these three things, what's going to happen? What happens to a stool if they don't have any legs, right? It's on the ground. Even if it just has one or two legs, it's going to be a little lopsided. Like that's what happened to my stand earlier when I was trying to set it up. One of the legs started collapsing and the whole thing like was on the floor, right? We have to have all three legs. So yesterday we talked about our schedules. And we talked about that time blocking is not a scaling schedule. And we're going to talk a little bit more about this here in just a minute as we do a quick little review. Okay. But we're schedules. Today, we're going to be talking about systems. And you're going to be surprised how many 6+ figure earners don't have scaling systems in place. They think they do, just like they think they have schedules in place, but they're not scaling schedules and they're not scaling systems. And then I'm going to go ahead and give you the last one, just so if you're like me, you want to complete the thing. But like I said, it's already in front of you anyway, so you know the answer. You guys already have the answer. And the last one is strategies. Now, when I talk about strategies, we'll get more into this on tomorrow on day three. This is not like what's my email strategy, whatever. This is like how we strategically map out how to get to this goal that you have. Okay. And we'll talk more about that tomorrow. But here's the thing. Here are your three legs. You must have all three. If you only have one, you are not going to scale. And there are a lot of people out there who have zero of these. They think they do, or they have one or two of these, but they don't have all three. Right? So for example, today, like one of the examples was leads, okay? Now, more leads is not going to matter if you don't have the strategy, right, for how you're going to get to that number of leads you want, the systems for how you're going to execute that strategy or your team execute that strategy and how you're going to follow up, and then the schedules for when and how often you're going to do it. Do you see how you need all three or it's not your stool's not going to stand, right? Your business is not going to scale. We are here. Well, let me ask this. Who is here to build a well-oiled machine? Say machine, right? Like we want to build a business that is producing more results with less blood, sweat, tears, and time, right? Like, I don't know about you, but when that machine is a little clunky and I keep having to put oil in there and I keep having to repair it, like it's frustrating, right? It's exhausting. It's overwhelming. It's all these things, right? So we are making a well-oiled machine. So keep this triangle in mind as we're talking through these things. Okay? Yes, we have this tangible roadie here, but we also have the intangible roadie. And I was thinking yesterday about like what is it that most women I talk to want to feel about their business in their life? And there are two words that came to mind: abundant and fulfilled. Abundant and fulfilled. How many of you, when it comes to your business, would describe it as abundant right now? If so, just drop abundant in the chat. But even more importantly, whether you say abundant or whether you don't, why does it feel abundant or why doesn't it? Right? It's going to feel abundant when you can see, right, that your impact is growing. And it may feel like it's going slow. That's okay, right? We start getting these things in place, it can go a whole lot faster. How many of you, when it comes to your life, feel fulfilled? Or maybe you're like me, I had that guilt tug of war because I didn't have healthy boundaries on my time. And so when I was with my family, I was always thinking about my business, what I needed to do. And I was working on my business, I was always feeling guilty that I wasn't with my family, right? Abundance and fulfillment come when you do what we're talking about this week. When you know what to do, when to do it, and how it's growing what you're called to grow, right? Which is why we're focusing on all three time scaling areas. Yeah, constant stress is not abundant and not fulfilling, right? That is not a well-oiled machine. And it's okay if that's where you are, because here's the thing. Thank you for saying that in the chat, because I guarantee you're not the only person feeling that. We have to stop and recognize that, right? And not just keep plowing through, hoping it's just going to get better, right? It's not just going to get better, which is why everything we're doing this week is not about being good with time, right? I just had somebody jump into one of my programs yesterday afternoon after day one because she felt God calling her to the next level with her time. She knew there was more abundance that he wanted for her as she was starting to grow this thing that he had given her, right? And she couldn't afford to waste or just spend time. She's like, Lissa, I need to multiply my time. Show me how to do that, right? So if that is you, I got to that place. I had maxed out my time, I had stressed out my time, and I had burned out my time. And I could not afford to waste or just spend time any longer, or I was just gonna have I was gonna be on the ground, right? Or I was gonna walk away from my business. And my family was really not gonna be happy with me. So if you can't afford to waste or just spend time, here's where I'm inviting you, because you're a part of this workshop series, to a time scaling strategy session. We are going to look at your current machine. We're going to look at your schedules. We're going to look at your systems. We're going to look at your strategies, along with what this roadie goal is, and if you have a team or a dream of a team. And we're going to find where are the gaps, where are the kakunks, right? And where are the opportunities so that we can start 10xing your productivity and doubling your results. And you're going to walk away from that call knowing how to get like a customized version of these working in place in your business in the next 14 days. Right? So here's the thing. I also hold boundaries in my calendar. So I'm only opening up 10 spots, even though there are many times that of people who registered for this and who are hearing this on YouTube and on the podcast. And many of those spots already got filled. So if you are called to the business that you're doing, you're committed to growing it, and you're serious about implementing it, right? Permission to multitask. And I'm going to drop this link in the chat. And if you're listening, I always like to say them out loud just in case. Redeemhertime.com/CEO dash apply. I'm not even making you go to the dashboard. I'm putting it right there, right? Because if this is what you want a well-oiled machine, so you're not clunk, 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 right? And you don't want the stress and the lack of abundance and fulfillment, then grab one of these. Okay. Let's talk about how you can customize these and get these going. Because here's the thing, you're going to learn a lot this week. This is day two, right? Of 3 days. And then we have a bonus day on Friday. But it's the implementation piece that's going to make the difference. Okay. So each day, remember, show up like you are here to get what my one-on-one people pay me, right? And you are committed to implementing, which means that I should be seeing you over inside the Redeem Her Time community. When you go to the dashboard, redeemhertime.com/dashboard, you will not only find the link to apply for that call, but you will also find links to the replays, links to bonuses, and links to our community, right? Every day I'm doing a little devotional in there. Every day I'm putting a homework post in, and every day I'm giving coaching feedback, right, to people who are raising their hand. And I'm also giving you permission. Yesterday I said, come in and introduce yourself. Today, like, who do you want to connect with? Come in and say, here's who I'm looking to meet, right? So I encourage you to make sure that you're not just showing up and listening, but you're actually doing something with this. Okay, so let's quick review. In case you didn't join us for day one, or if you just are like me and you need to hear it again, we're going to take this really quick. We talked about the difference between business owner time. Let me find it. Oh, here we go. Business owner time and CEO time, right? Managing versus multiplying, spending or wasting versus investing, right? And then we talked about our schedules, right? And again, I told you, I have so many women who tell me, Lisa, I have a schedule. Okay, so let's say you have a schedule. I'm saying this in air quotes if you can't see me. Okay, but most people, it's either a phone that you're scrolling through appointments and to-do lists, or, like it's something that you wrote out on paper, but you never even look at all day. So here's the test. If you have a schedule, but you're constantly pulled off task, it's easy to procrastinate, right? Kick the can down the road like that gal that I shared with you yesterday, or you don't follow it and wonder why it feels like life just happens every day. And you get to the end of the day and wonder, what did I even get done? Or you can't see the measurable progress, AKA the roadie. You don't have a time scaling schedule, right? Time scaling schedules help you know what it's time for. And spoiler alert, time blocking is not a scaling schedule. That's why I taught you about time anchor zones. This morning, I woke up, where's my phone, to a lot of messages and things in my inboxes in here. And you know what I could have done? I could have jumped right into here and started, responding to people and answering questions and right? And doing stuff with my team and all of that. But I have time anchor zones. I knew that my first time was my time with the Lord. It was my time to refill, right? And then I knew I had some CEO time set aside that I was working on preparations for this. And then I got into those things, but I didn't let the red circles drive my time. How many of you are letting the red circles? All of a sudden you go into your inbox or you go to check one thing on Facebook and like all this time gets by and you're like, oh my goodness, what just happened? This is why you will work less hours when you have time scaling schedules. When you have those time anchor zones, which include your business hour boundaries, and that's just one piece of the ideal week plan that I teach the clients I work with that help you know what it's time for and that help you to not drift off, right? And to stay within that zone of what it's time for. And I'm not living by a to-do list, just so you know, we'll talk about that today. Okay, so in your homework yesterday, all I asked you to do was to declare your business hour boundaries, right? There's a decision that needs to happen in that. But then there's also like, okay, a defense of that. How am I actually protecting that? Not just from other people, from in here too, right? Squirrel, hello. And then how am I sharing that? So it's not too late if you didn't do that yet. You're not behind. You're never behind. Like start treating time like it's your most valuable resource. It is your most valuable scaling asset. And the sooner you focus on what it's time for, the sooner you'll start seeing results. So I just want to open it up for one or two ladies to share something that was an aha for you, either in our time together yesterday or since we talked, that has to do with your schedule. Like you could be like, I thought I had a schedule, but ... right? Or right, like here's how I recommitted to the schedule that I had and why it matters. Or here's what I'm doing to make sure that I don't just say I'm working during this time, but I'm actually not letting other things, distract my time during that time. So it could be in any of those areas, whether you were starting from scratch because you had no business hours or you already had some, but there was something you learned to take it to the next level. Are there one or two people who were on yesterday? Just raise your hand or unmute. I would love for one or two people to share just a quick little win. Love this. Learning it's okay to be slow and have a non-productive day. Sometimes that's the most productive thing you can do when you know what it's time for, right?
I think for me, it was just a good reminder because we are coming out, I'm coming out of a particular season and getting ready to move into another one. So
Mhm.
it it wasn't so much an aha of just like, okay, I need to reevaluate. And I think it's easy to forget that we need those reevaluation times because our seasons can change. Like for us, it changes every quarter or so.
Yeah.
Um, and I mean, especially when you've got growing children, I mean, it really does change every quarter. But even just life in general. So, and not, and for others, like it may be every 6 months, it may be every year, but like just needing to have those resets. Yeah. And something's happened today that's like, okay, we can now start moving forward with the planning of this next, not completely, but like we can start putting those pieces into place of what we need to do over the next month. And then as those answers come in, then we can plan a little further out. So that's like it's really exciting.
I love this. I love this. Yes. And Emmy hit on something that we talked about towards the end of yesterday. If you stayed on till the end and we had some question Q&A at the end, is how often do you reevaluate this? At least every quarter, right? You are welcome to evaluate this. I mean, every week you should be paying attention to what's working, what's not working, and how can I make tweaks to my ideal week plan so that when I do my weekly planning, things are flowing. But yes, whenever you have a transition period or about every quarter, it's like come back in. And this is what we're going to talk about with the systems today as well. People build it and then they forget it. They don't ever look at it or they don't ever update it, and then it doesn't really work for them anymore. And then what was the point, right? I love that Lorian shared it was great to talk over her ideal schedule with her husband and talk about what's going to work for both of you. Yes, you're including not only what are my work hours, but also like you're doing that communication piece, like communicating with somebody else that it affects and getting that input as well, which is super helpful. So I love that. I love that. Today, we are talking about day two, activating your team output. Remember, if you don't have a team yet, you're your first hire already. So you do have a team with time scaling systems. So let me ask you a question. So yesterday, we pretended you wanted to work 24 hours a week. This was our example. Okay. Oh, I love this. For me, it's remembering to refill first. And today I remembered to jump into my Bible first. Yes, yes, yes. That is the time that will multiply everything else in your day. I love it, right? We're going to make that your new norm. Okay. So say, for example, that you wanted to do this 4 hour time block 6 days a week, just for example. Okay. What if you could sit down to that 4 hour work block and know exactly what to do to knock out everything you need to do to move the needle in those 4 hours and walk away feeling like your business is abundant and feeling that fulfillment as you go about the rest of your day with everything else that you is on your heart and help anyone else who's working with you or one day will work with you do the same. Would that feel amazing? Drop amazing in the chat if you're like, girl, I would love when if I sit down, it's one thing to say I'm going to work for 4 hours, but it's another thing to A, stay focused and B, know what to do and not feel like I'm wasting, half the time just trying to get ready to get ready. Anybody waste some of their time just trying to figure out like what you're going to do next or like, kind of half starting a whole bunch of different things? Yesterday was about when you work. Today is going to be about what you do when you sit down to work. And how are you going to get it all done in the time that you just said? Right? Here's the thing. You're going to be focused because you know what it's time for. Okay. But we also don't want to get stuck in creation cave or consumption cave. How many of you are content consumers? You could be on webinars and trainings and listening to podcasts and whatever all day long. While there's a good thing for that, right? That is not always going to move your business forward, right? Hopefully this is like one of those examples that is, but or we get stuck in creation cave, right? Where we're just creating all day long and it's all this stuff, right? And we look up and like we built it and they haven't come, right? Or maybe you get lost in your overflowing inboxes. Or maybe you're just flying by the seat of your pants because you need time scaling systems to do the things that are going to move the needle in a timely way. Okay. See how everything comes down to time? Okay. And again, if you're still thinking, Lisa, I don't have a team, I'm not making enough to bring on a team, so that's going to be a while. I'm just going to say for you, like if you want to scale, I want you to thinking one day I will. Right. And even if you feel like it's easier for you to do stuff yourself, you are going to have to bring on people. Okay? Because as a business owner who wants to scale, you can't and shouldn't. I gotta take this bracelet off. It's like rubbing on my arm. You can't and shouldn't do it all. Think about your home, right? Regardless of how many people are in your home, unless you are like living all by yourself and you have fur babies, then yes, you're probably doing it all. Otherwise, you should not be the only person doing all the things it takes to run a household, right? You need to learn to delegate to family or to hire, right? Or you're never going to have time for the things that only you can do, including taking care of you. How many of you have had this feeling when like the dishes got washed and it wasn't you? Or the laundry got folded or the bathroom's cleaned or whatever and it wasn't you? Like that feels amazing. Whether you were using that time to, go work on your business or whether you're using that time to, to relax or do something else, it doesn't matter. There's always a way to delegate when you truly understand the value of time and scaling time. Otherwise, you know what's going to happen? You will become the lid, right? You will become the lid because you will max out the 24 hours in your day, right? And so I am going to teach you how to start thinking about team down the road. And it starts with you treating yourself as your first hire. And then in that time scaling bonus I mentioned yesterday, right? Like now when do I hire and how do I hire? And there are creative ways you can do it that don't cost you a penny. So we'll talk about all of that inside of there. And if you grab one of those calls, I can tell you more about that. But today, I'm going to show you that second leg of the triangle. There's something on this leg of the triangle that many 6+ figure earners put off, even those who have a team, right? Even women that I've talked to that have 3, 4, 5, 10 people with a team because they think they don't have time. And they don't even realize this is costing them more time and money than they think, right? And they're all over the place behind the scenes trying to duct tape everything together. And their team is actually turned into a time drain and an expense, not a revenue generating asset. It is not a well-oiled machine. Remember, we said it starts with you, but then when you start bringing people on, right? If you don't have this time scaling stuff in place and then also teach them to do the same thing, and good news, I have something coming where I will actually teach your team these things so you don't have to be the one to teach them. Who would love that, right? Like just hand me your team and I will make sure that they've got all of this. You guys are all going to be thinking and talking with the same verbiage and you'll have the same schedule systems and strategies in place. And so when you bring them onto a team meeting and you're talking about this, they're going to know what you're talking about. I'm going to teach you how to lead those meetings too. Okay. So anyway, be watching for that. Um, but here's the thing. Whether you have a team of one or a team of 101, now is the time to start getting systems in place. Not only for down the road when you hire somebody, but also just, hello, Q4 is like a month away. This is the most revenue generating quarter of the year. And it's also contend to be the busiest because of the holidays. But here's the thing, you still have time, right? And so your October to December results start with how you invest time now, which is where the schedules and the systems and the strategies come in. So if you were seeing a gap in your numbers, you're looking at that roadie number and you're like, there's a big gap between my current and what I want. Or if you're ready, like maybe you're at a great place and you just want to like, you feel God calling you to that next level. This is why you need the schedule systems and strategies, all three, right? Think of the stool. We need all three legs. We have to scale our time in order to scale our results. Because as our business time is more intentional and focused and not random and scattered, hello, you're going to scale your results in less time, right? So that is what we're talking about. We're talking about time scaling, creating exponentially more impact and income without a corresponding increase in time. So many people think, we talked about this yesterday, business owners think if I want to increase my results, I have to put in more time. Not necessarily. We have to be more strategic with our time. You can even scale back your time because once you get some healthy boundaries around it with your schedules, and once you know exactly what to do or exactly what to have your team doing, now you're going to see more roadie from what's filling it, right? So this is why systems is the next thing. So how many of you, before we get into this, believe that if you had systems in place, you'd be in a different place in your business? Say me in the chat or raise your, wave at me or whatever. Like, yeah, yeah, right? Me, right? Like, okay. So I'm curious, how would you define a system? Drop that in the chat. I want to see how you're coming in today. How would you define a system? You didn't know I was a math teacher and an English teacher, so I love definitions. So we're all talking about the same thing. Any thoughts on that? A process that's repeatable and sometimes automated? Yes, that is definitely a part of that. Consistent process. Yes, that has a defined outcome. I love that, Carol. We're going to circle back to that because a lot of them don't have that. Yes. So many people think that my tech Like I had somebody sharing with me earlier today, I have a CRM, that's my system. No, it's not. That's just a tool. Or somebody, says, I have a to-do list or I have a workflow. That's my system, right? But this is, I have team, right? Like just having team or tech or task flows doesn't automatically multiply your time. We need systems. Yes, and I love these words in here. Organizing. Systems include organizing. Systems include how to. Systems include order. We'll talk about that in just a second, right? Systems are consistency. Yes, so many things in here. Working smarter, not harder. Amen, amen, amen. Right? Here's the thing. When you have systems, it will make bringing on team possible sooner than you think. And women I work with all the time think they have systems. Otherwise, they wouldn't be getting results, right? But what it really looks like behind the scenes, sometimes like a chicken with their head cut off. They're running around, they got random to-do lists, they got random tabs open, they got notebooks and post-its and phone notes and everything running through here, and so many tabs on their screen that you can't even read what they say. Who plays hide and go seek with their tabs? Drop tabs in the chat. Overflowing inboxes. I had somebody tell me she was spending over 2 hours a day just in her inbox, right? Or her Google Drive trying to find something, right? Or in a team that's all over, always asking questions like, you are now the bottleneck. If you're not organized and have systems like we're going to talk about today, you're not going to scale, right? And here's the thing. The systems that get you to your first level of results are not going to be the ones that will get you to the next level. Now, it doesn't mean you have to scrap them completely, but you just have to come in and periodically, just like with your schedule, like Emmy was talking about, we have to come in and reevaluate. What are the current needs? Is this system working or not working? How often do we just let it keep going and it's not even working, right? Now you're wasting more time and more money, right? Let me ask you this question. What if tonight you woke up tomorrow morning with this crazy influx of leads, clients, or opportunities tomorrow? Could your systems handle it? Like crazy, like thousands of things just came in, right? What would break first? This is why you need systems. And this is why we keep coming back to check the systems. If you were, running a machine, like one of those, what am I thinking? Like a conveyor belt type, company, you'd be checking your systems to make sure they're working efficiently, right? You'd have people that was their job, right? That's what we have to do. And it's so interesting. I had this conversation with a business coach recently who works with 6 and 7 figure earners. And she said, Lissa, they say they have systems and they've heard of SOPs. We're going to talk about SOPs today, standard operating procedures, but they actually don't really have them because they don't have time to create them. And then they wonder why they're so disorganized and why their team is an expense, right? So this hits all levels. If you don't have scalable systems in place, it will cost you time and money, especially when you bring on more people, then it's going to be a drain. And this is also why you're not going to scale just by adding those things in. Okay. Now, if you saw this morning's devotional in the community, I hope you're going over there because I'm always sharing things inside there. And that one was about order. Okay. And we'll actually kind of touch on that in just a minute. But last week I was in First Corinthians. Remember, yesterday I was in Second Corinthians, exactly what we were talking about. So last week this happened. And I was in First Corinthians 4:2, and it says this: it is required of stewards that they be found trustworthy. And we talked about this yesterday. Like, what is a steward, right? A steward, we're seeing ourselves as Christ empowered operators, CEOs of our business, which means it's not all about us. We've been entrusted with this time and as well as this passion and this vision to protect and expand on behalf of the owner, right? A steward is someone who is to protect and expand a resource that isn't theirs, to invest it so that it gets a return according to the master's, the owner's purpose, and make decisions on behalf of the true owner, which means we have to know the owner, right? And that's why that one servant who went and buried it, he thought he knew him. He thought he was harsh. He thought he had unrealistic expectations. And so he had a fear response. And what was that master's response? Not only, you wicked and lazy servant, but what else did he say? Like, I'm going to take from you what I gave you, right? And he turned to the other two servants and said, you have been trustworthy in a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. If someone looked at your time, if someone looked at these hours that you're sitting down to work, that 4 hour time block, would they say that you are being a trustworthy steward? And again, this isn't in a like, I'm hiding so I don't get in trouble, but this should like create some sense of like urgency and responsibility in us. Do you know the master's purpose for your time? And are you investing it in what's going to expand the kingdom as if you'll give an account? And are you looking for ways to make your time more productive and more profitable because it gives him all the more glory, right? Here's where stewardship multiplies. And it starts with you stewarding what's been entrusted to you. And then as you bring on team, guess what? You're now trusting things in their hands. How many of you is it hard to hand over to something to somebody else, whether it's your kids or, a team member, or maybe somebody else at church that you're working on a project with, or, something like that. Like it can be hard to entrust that, yeah, to them, right? But just like God has given that to us, right? And now we are stepping up into that role. Like as leaders, as business owners, we have to learn how to then, entrust things into other people's hands, right? And this is where the scaling is going to happen. But what does a business owner do? I'm doing it all. I don't have time. I don't have money. I don't have whatever, right? And so they sit down to those 4 hours and they're like, how am I getting it all done? Let me ask you, drop in the chat, what drives what you do during your work time? I mean, this could also apply to any other time of your day, but like what drives? Is it those red little numbers on your phone? Would that be what gets you going? Is it an inbox? A to-do list? The urgency you feel? Okay. Squirrels, right? Then this is what turns into business owner time. We are doing all day long, but we're random and we're jumping from one thing to the next, even if you don't leave your office. Even if you're like, Lisa, I actually was at my computer for those 4 hours, minus going to the bathroom, right? Or whatever you need to do, right? You shouldn't be like not taking breaks. And you may have been related to your business the whole time, but you're all over the place. Remember the example I gave yesterday of what my time block schedule looked like? My color coded things. I was super organized, I thought, but I was literally jumping from one thing to the next. It was very random, and I was letting all of these external things determine where I was going, right? And that led to busyness as usual. And random doing gets random what? Results, because we just said the input determines the outputs, right? Yes, the things I planned for the day. Okay, I love that, Carol, right? Because that's what one of the things we want to do is what have I planned for the day? But here's the thing. Time management tells us then you need to make a to-do list. How many of you have a to-do list? Here's the next question. How many items are on your to-do list? How many items are on all of your to-do lists? Because let's be honest, they're not just in one place, right? How many to-do lists do you have? Where are your to-do lists? Like, dare I ask how many tabs you do have open on your desktop? Because that's like your I got to get back to-do list, right? Like we should, well, let me just say this first. To-do lists waste 1 to 2 hours a day. It takes time to write, rewrite, and then guess what do we do? Where do we start? At the top, right? We start at the top because we think that's most important. It was actually just the first thing we thought of, right? And then we start chasing that rabbit trail where maybe number 3 or 4 was really what mattered, right? See why time management is killing your business growth and keeps you like always doing? And whoever really gets to the end of that to-do list anyway, right? And then we bring on team and we think I'm going to hand off these to-dos to them and free up my time, but like again, it just multiplies the problem, right? And we have more randomness, which is why then we put it out, we put off hiring people and things like that. To-do lists are not a scaling system. Okay? To-do lists are not a scaling system. In the devotional this morning, this is what I meant to say earlier. 1 Corinthians 14:40, you can tell I've been in Corinthians lately. It talks about everything must be done properly and in order. Now, I'm a huge, I do not like when people take scripture out of context. So this chapter is actually about worship. But if you know, the Hebrew word for work and worship is the same word, avodah. There's this connection between the order in our work and order in worship because work is worship. So when we are random with this time and scattered, right, and not productive with it, we are not truly using the time that's been entrusted to us in a way that's bringing him the most glory, right? So whether it's corporate worship or business worship, right, everything must be done properly and in order, 1 Corinthians 14:40. And these time scaling systems are this bridge between this big picture we have in our head and actually how do I do this thing, the execution piece? How do I steward what God has given me, right? And as CEOs, we want to make the most of our time and our team's time, and we want productivity as well as profitability. But here's the thing. We're not just about checking boxes. We want to do what is producing results, which is why your systems have to have, like Carol said, an outcome attached to it, a roadie attached to it. Okay, most people don't build systems that actually have that attached. So, first thing I'm going to tell you, CEOs don't have time for to-do lists. I believe 90% of the things that are on your to-do list shouldn't be there. And you probably shouldn't have more than 5. I saw somebody say she has 0 to 3 things a week. That's amazing. Okay, but most people aren't like that. And when I work with clients, we talk about the difference between a one and done, like this is truly a to-do, and once I do it, then it's gone, versus a reoccurring, like this is something I do. Notice, what are the things, why do we act like this is the first time I'm going to do it, and so I write it in my list? Like, I do this every week. I do this every day. Why am I writing it every day? Put it in this word. I'm show you how to put it in the system, okay, that you can follow, and so can anyone else. which is going to make you more efficient and make it easier to delegate. Who wants to make things more efficient and easier to hand off? Say me in the chat, right? So here's the thing. You want to start creating time scaling systems now. Start getting everything out of your head and off your to-do list. Get it in a place, right? It's going to maximize your time and it's going to make it easier to hand off to other people. Okay? Because scaling CEOs don't have time to do it all. And when they hand things off, they don't have time for hand holding or babysitting or double checking, right? How many times, like when you have your kids do something, you have to go back and double check it and like redo it yourself. And then you're like, oh, I should have done it myself. Like that's not how we want to delegate in our business, right? So we have to understand, how do I do this so that I can step away? A couple weeks ago, my daughter was home. She had this short window of like 5 days between camp and college, and we had to go find a wedding dress. So I actually sent an email about this because I was like, while I was dress shopping with my daughter, I was also scaling my business. Why? Because I had systems and teams that were working in the background that were getting ready for this thing right here, right? They were collecting registrations. They were sending, out emails. They were sending out texts. They were posting resources for clients. Like I had things in place so that I didn't always have to be the person that pushed every button, right? And when inside that time scaling team bonus, we're going to talk about how to know what to hand off. And it's not just the things you don't want to do or you don't like to do. It's very likely the things you are already doing, but somebody else could do, right? So we'll talk more about that for those of you who are ready to go to that next level. But today I want to talk about our time scaling tool, which is called Scalable SOPs. Scalable SOPs. Have you heard of an SOP before? Do you know what SOP stands for? Standard Operating Procedures. But here's the thing. Even like I said, 6 and 7 figure earners, they know what they are, but they don't have them. Or they have one or two, but not all the ones that they need. This is not just documenting a workflow or a to-do list, because we are going to build ones that have roadie attached. This is how we know if they're working. This is how we see them scaling, right? Yes, you have clients who do that for corporations, make a fortune, okay? And you need them too at every level of business. Every single person listening to me needs to have SOPs, but we are making ones that are scalable, right? Scalable, which means they are going to grow with us because we continue to address the needs that we have. We're continuing to help them move us towards the next goal that we're working towards, right? And it's kind of this repeating process, but it's also shareable, right? And it's also tweakable because things are going to change, right, as you grow. And here's the key to it. It needs to be all inclusive, where everything is needed is in one click. How many of you would it be amazing if you actually sat down to work on something and you didn't have to go back into your emails or go searching through your Google Drive or go find that list somewhere or try to like remember in your head what were the steps that I did and where was that link and how did I, do I have a template for this, right? Everything in one place, right? Talk about keeping you from getting pulled in too many directions. Your brain's not trying to hold all the moving parts. You're not trying to remember. You're not trying to find the link or the document or the resource. You and or your team know exactly what to do, when to do it, and how it's leading you to growth because you're measuring that without constantly asking questions or making you the bottleneck. Okay, so if you look in your workbook, I have given you a very simple template for it. It really is not difficult. But there are two pieces to this. Number one, it's the building it out, going through and filling, these spots in. So we're going to talk through what these are, and then I'm going to walk you through one that I think most people either don't have in place or need to go back and refine. Okay, and that is your follow-up system. So we're going to work through an example here. But first of all, you're going to need to map it out, and then second, you're going to need a place where it's easily accessible. Okay, that's the second piece that so many people are missing. And you really should have this for every set of things that you do in your business. But guess what? Shouldn't be like, well, I mean, you could, I guess, say the rest of today, I'm creating these for everything I do, Lissa. And I'm going to give you in our little top 5, I'm going to give you a tip that's going to help you start doing this. But I'm going to say start with one, right? And then you can add the next one and the next one and the next one, right? And this doesn't have to be hard. And when you bring on somebody, right, if you already have this built, it's going to make it so much easier to hand off to them. Even if you just built it like the week before, that's okay, right? As long as everything's in one place, like, okay, now I can teach somebody. Okay, so here are the parts of this, okay? It's the what, the why. I put the how and the where together, and you'll see why in just a minute. The who, the when, and the how often. Okay, so let's talk through this real quick, and then we're going to work through an example, okay? So our what is the task, right? What is the task that is needing to happen? Now, if this is like a huge project, I'm going to tell you, I'll tell you a little bit more about what I do with projects because I've actually got a template that I put together for that. So, we're not talking like something that has like, 100 moving parts, right? That may need its own project board. But okay, what is the task? Okay. So, and actually, let's work through this as we go. Okay. So let's say that we're doing this follow-up system. Because just because you build it doesn't mean they will come, right? You could have an amazing course, an amazing book, an amazing podcast, an amazing fill in the blank, right? And just because it's out there doesn't mean, I mean, you're gonna have your grandma and your mom, right? Maybe your best friend, maybe like you have a couple people, ride or die people that every time you put something out, they're like, I'm in, I love what she does, right? But then it's gonna be like crickets. We don't want that. Okay. So the first thing is what is the task, right? So we're going to do this example for follow-ups. This could be anything. Like this could be like you could create one of these for your startup routine, a shutdown routine, for content creation, for posting that content or repurposing, for onboarding or offboarding, whether it's team or clients, for the way you do your monthly finances. I mean, like there are so many systems that we can build. I'm going to show you a really simple way to keep them all in one place so you're not overwhelmed and like, kind of got them in a bunch of places. Okay, but this part is important, the why. Okay, and the why is always connected to the roadie. So sometimes you've heard people talk about KPIs. Have you heard that word, that term? Who knows what a KPI is? Anybody know? My husband actually asked me that the other day because he had heard it some random place and had no idea what it was. A key performance indicator. Yes, Melanie just joined us in the room and she's got the answer. Ding, ding, ding. Okay, but the question is, we can know what it is, but are we doing it, right? I call ours roadie. What is the return on time invested that I want this to produce? This is how I'm going to measure it instead of just checking boxes and wondering why I'm not getting anywhere, right? So when it comes to your follow-ups, maybe your roadie is that you're booking 3 calls a week because that's going to lead to 5 new clients a month or whatever your number is, right? Okay, but you have to attach a roadie to it because this is now what's going to drive. This is my why. This is what I'm driving towards, right? If I'm just checking boxes, following up, right? I'm not really paying attention to where is this taking me, which is why you have to have a roadie attached to it. And why business owners talked about this yesterday have to look at your numbers, right? We don't like to look at numbers because they're scary or because we don't like what they say or because it's going to take time and we don't think we have time. But guess what? You do have time because it's only when you look at your numbers that you can see, am I on track here? And then you can evaluate, is this thing working or not working? Okay, so we have to have a roadie attached to what that is. Okay, now the next part is the how and the where. Okay, so this is your step-by-step instructions with your resources. So instructions, steps, and resources. Like where are they going to find this? Okay, so it's not enough to just say, okay, I need to, send a message. Okay, where is that message being sent? Right? Is it being sent via DM? Is it being sent via email? Is it being sent via text? Right? Like here's where you would map out what are the steps that I'm going to go through, right? When I have someone I'm following up with. And where am I keeping track of the things that they have said, so that I know exactly, right, what that next step is with them. And I actually just did this morning over inside the community. I asked a question. I said, I am sharing my follow-up system, and I did a little video tour of it. And I said, who wants it? I had 3 people raise their hand. So if you would like to see how this is laid out in mine, drop leads in the chat here. Or if you're listening on replay, or you're somewhere else as you're listening to this and you're not on here live, you can message it to me. You can comment inside the community, however you want to get that to me, and I will get you a little video of what this looks like, right? But you have to know what are the steps and where are all the things, even if it's just you. It was so interesting. I have interns that are on my team, and a couple weeks ago, one of them needed to be on a family leave, and so she had been taking care of my podcast like production stuff. So I would actually record the podcast, and then I would hand her the elements, and then she would take it from there. Well, and I used to do that, right? So it was one of those things like I've done it before, so it was no problem. Like no problem. I will definitely take that back while you need this time. But here's the thing: instead of me just trying to remember in my head or whatever, like I went into the scalable SOP on this one dashboard that I'm going to show you guys. And I was able to, it had all the links there, had all the steps there. Like I just clicked buttons. I got that done way faster than I ever used to, right? Because I had the what, the how, and the where all in one place. I didn't have to go searching for a bunch of stuff. And I'm even in the process now of like refining that even more to make it even more efficient for her and when I need to come and bring this back. Okay. So the step by step with instructions and where are the resources. Imagine if you had the link for what you needed right there with the task. How much easier, how much faster would that task be for you or your team or if it was all there? Okay. The next one is the who. Who is responsible? Who is doing this? Is it you? Is it a team member? If so, which team member? Maybe there are multiple roles. Maybe it's you plus a team member, right? Like you have to determine who is the person that is doing this. Okay. So maybe it is you right now, but this is something that you're like, you know what? This is something that, yeah, I was the only person who could create the podcast recording, but somebody else could do all the other stuff. Even though it didn't take me that long. That was the excuse I gave for so long. Oh, it's not a big deal. It just takes me a few minutes. But all those just a few minutes, they add up, right? All right, here's a key one. When will it be done? And I teach something called to my clients the frequency factor. Okay? Because there are things that need to happen on a daily basis. For me, I follow my follow-up system. I call it hello to let's go. I follow this Monday through Thursday. So I don't do it on Fridays, but Monday through Thursday, I'm doing this. So is this something that needs to happen like daily for you? And when I say daily, it means like business day daily, right? Like it doesn't necessarily mean like 7 days a week. And if you only work 3 days, then it's only 3 days, right? Or is this something that needs to happen weekly? Or is this something that needs to happen monthly? Maybe it needs to happen a certain week of the month. Like we have to get really specific around the when. And the system that I use, you can actually trigger so that it will give you a reminder, right? So that you know exactly when to do it. Okay. And then here's the key one that again, so many are missing is the how often am I coming in to evaluate and update? Can you read this way down here? You write it and then I'll see if you can see it on the screen. Update date. I can't spell and talk at the same time. Sorry about that. That says update down there in case you're like, what did she just write? Update. My brain was talking and typing or writing at the same time. How and when will you evaluate and update? Right now, we shouldn't be doing this probably every day unless you're really noticing the wheels are falling off the bus and, like I need to fix this now. Okay, then yes, push pause and figure it out. Right? But maybe it's once a quarter. Maybe it's once every 6 months. Maybe it's once a year. Right? Like when are you going back to evaluate? Is this still meeting my current needs of my business or whatever this thing is? Right? And like, what is it that's going to help me go to this next level? Right? So this is a way to really get it all in one place, not only so it will be faster for you, but then you can easier hand it off to somebody else. Do you see how no, taking the time, it doesn't take a whole lot of time. You could sit down and maybe 5, 10 minutes, depending on what it is, you could have this all worked out for something, right? Okay. So it doesn't have to take a lot of time, but it will save you a lot of time and money, right? Because your time is going to be more focused. You're going to know exactly what to do. And the system that I teach, right? Like instead of like letting your inbox drive what you do, right? Like I don't open my inbox first. I open my CEO dashboard first. My CEO dashboard drives my day. And I've already set it up at the beginning of the week. And those things that are reoccurring in there are already tagged with the day of the week that I'm going to do them. And then I already have like the next day set up, right? Because I do that at the end of my day. That's part of my offboarding system. So I go in there and I just start executing. It's all right in one place, right? And this has saved so much time and so much frustration, and it helps it make it easier to hand off to team people as well, right? Because everything is in one place, and you can even assign it to other people, right? And see what activity they've done, right? So talk about getting your time back and talk about like, being able to like hand things off to somebody and not feel like you have to be constantly checking in. Did you do this? Did you do this? Did you do this? Right? Like that's business changing and life changing because your time is your most valuable resource. Right? And so scalable SOPs not only help activate your time, they help activate your team's time when you bring them on. Right? Because they take you out of being the bottleneck. You're not micromanaging, but now what's being done is moving the needle and is revenue generating, right? But the key to scalable SOPs that's missing, right, is often this why, the roadie attached to it, all of these things being in one place, And then like the how often am I going to evaluate and update this, right? That is really important. And like I said, I've actually talked to a couple of business owners in the last 3 weeks. Very interesting. They all have launched something recently, right? But they don't have a follow-up system in place with the leads that do come in. So that way they are constantly keeping people, like having conversations with people and building relationships and being able to ask qualifying questions and see who even would be interested and needing something so that when this does come, they can, invite them to whatever that thing is. Okay, so this is why I say these systems, when you then have a schedule that tells you when to execute them, is going to help scale your time. Okay. I was even in my Hello to Let's Go system this morning, right? It's on my dashboard. I have a daily power hour, like I said. Today's Wednesday, so I was doing it, right? And I have a way that I track everything I do each day so I can see exactly what's happened and what the results were, right? Like when you have a system and a schedule and it's tied to that strategy of growth, right? This is how you scale things. It's not just random box checking or hoping that you're going to remember or get around to it and all of that, right? This is why we need to make sure that all this stuff is together and in one place. The systems tell us what to do. The schedules tell us when to do it. Let me go back to our triangle. There we go. And strategies are about how it's moving us towards the growth. And we'll talk more on that tomorrow because goal setting is not a strategy. Okay. At least not a time scaling strategy. Okay. So let me give you the time scaling top five. So 5 little tips as you're starting to do this. Okay. And then I'll share your homework with you. Okay. And I did put these yesterday when we did the top five. Um, Someone asked, hey, what was this one again? I attached it in the post inside the community. So if you did not get the top five for schedules yesterday, go inside the community where I shared the replay and it is inside of there. Okay. And I'll do the same thing today. Okay. So time scaling systems top five. You ready? Okay. Lorian's asking me, and let me answer this question. This is important. How is a scalable SOP different than a regular SOP? Because you're thinking with growth in mind. You're not just thinking about checking a box. You're thinking about how is this moving me forward? And then you're constantly thinking about how am I coming back to this to meet the needs as I grow and as I scale, right? For most people, an SOP is just simply a workflow or a to-do list. And that's helpful. It's better than it being in your head, right? I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but like we want to make sure that our systems are moving us forward and they're attached to that roadie, right? They're moving us towards this. Everything around here is moving us to this, right? Why do I have schedules? How is a scalable schedule different than just a schedule? Because it's focused on things that are actually driving towards this, right? Not just my to-do list on my calendar. Okay, same thing with systems. Great question. I love that. Okay, top five. Ready? Number one, start identifying what is reoccurring that you do in your business and what's simply a one and done. If it's simply a one and done, like somebody shared with me, I asked a question in the community and she said she needs to get her LLC. Okay, that is like a one-time thing. I got an LLC for Redeem Her Time years ago, and I don't ever have to do that again. Right? So that's okay. I don't need a whole system around it. I just need to decide when am I doing it. Put it on your calendar and get it off your list. Right? Those are one and dones. Systems are going to be for the reoccurring things, the things that need to happen. And I teach you inside my program, how do you create what I call a daily, weekly, monthly dashboard so that those things that are repeatable, like all of them are in one place. And you're not dropping balls or forgetting or getting to the end of the year and you're like, shoot, I was supposed to do that every quarter for my tax person or whatever it is. Okay, so start paying attention to what's repeatable and what's just a one and done. Number two, create these scalable SOPs in real time. So notice when you're sitting down to do something, oh, while I'm doing it, I could actually like create, this SOP while I'm doing it because I'm actually doing it and I'll know exactly the steps to do it. That's how I created that podcast one for my intern because before that I was just doing it. I knew what to do. But then I went and was like, okay, while I'm doing it, I'm going to do this. And I love using like Loom to screen record and you can show them what you're doing, right? So I know Emmy, she uses her kids, right? Like screen record, right? And have written instructions and, visual and just start creating SOPs in real time while you're already doing something instead of like, oh yeah, I need to do that someday. Like just be like, oh, if it pops in your head, like this should have a system around it. I should probably create a scalable SOP for this, then yay, do it. So, or at least start it, right? While you're doing it. Tip number 3 is to have a CEO dashboard. Have one central hub where all of these scalable systems live, right? One thing that then leads out to everything else. If you look at my desktop right now, I have two tabs open. One of them is my dashboard, and one of them is the notes for today. That's it. I don't have a whole bunch of tabs open to remind me to go back to things because if it's something I'm supposed to be going to, it's already lives on my dashboard. So I don't have to like have a bazillion things open and then try to figure out what they all say because they're so small. Okay, number three, start planning to delegate the things that somebody else could do. Like right now, you may be you, yourself, and you, and you're doing it all. But notice what are the things that only I can do? I call those CEO tasks. And that's one thing I work with my clients on is teaching them what's a CEO task versus what's a non-CEO task. Doesn't mean it's not important, it just means you're not the only person who can do it or this piece of it, right? And it's okay if it's not done just exactly like you did it. Like, 80% of, is great, right? Like it doesn't have to be your perfectionistic 100%. So you're going to sometimes have to let go of some of that, right? In order to be able to scale your time. Okay. And then number five is to set aside time to regularly assess and evaluate and update your systems. You should be doing the same thing with schedules, like we talked about in the very beginning, right? Because as you scale and as you get closer and closer to this, and then this number grows, right? Or you bring on more team or whatever, the life change happens, or you have a different direction in your business or whatever it is, like these things need to be able to grow with you, right? And you don't want to have to feel like, the beautiful thing of this is you don't have to start over, right? Like it probably, and there are some times where like I've just been like, I don't even need the system anymore at all. Like I'll just go archive it. So that way it's still there in case I ever come back to it. But most of the time it's just I need to tweak it. I need to update it, right? So like regularly decide I'm going to come in and maybe once a week you hit one system, once you have stuff built out and things like that. Okay. When I work with my clients, right, not only do we determine what are the CEO tasks and non-CEO tasks, then we also map them out with a frequency factor so they know how often does this need to happen. And then we build out those scalable SOPs. And then we put it all on their CEO dashboard. Okay. So if you would, I will put a video over inside the community of the CEO dashboard. Drop dashboard if you want me to tag you on there. If you want to see what my dashboard looks like, I will drop that video over there and tag you on it so that way you can see it. And in this new version of the of my program, I'm putting together. I have a few of these already in the program, but I'm adding more. I'm calling it a play and plug scalable SOP library. Like I'm going to already build out the framework for your dashboard. How easy is that? Now you just plug in the tasks you have to do. I'm already going to give you the hello to let's go follow up one. So that way you can just start putting your people in, right? Or the what to post content calendar, or the get her done project and events, or the get your team on board onboarding. Like if those would be helpful for you, if you're like, oh, plug and play, like yes, like then let's talk about that when we do that call because I want those are things that like you don't have to reinvent the wheel, but you can customize it to make fit you. Okay. When you are working in your business, we don't want to be wasting a bunch of time on random stuff. And not just random things, but doing things in a random way. This is why we want to have scalable SOPs and scalable systems, and why when you bring team on, you want to make sure you have those because this is how you're going to multiply your time when you bring on a team member, not keep you distracted all day long because you're trying to hold their hand or fix things or answer questions, right? And you're not going to scale your business until you figure out how to build these kind of systems because this is what's going to help scale your time. Okay. I had one client who started saving 3 hours a day as a solopreneur just because she built out her CEO dashboard and started putting these systems on there. Like 3 hours a day? Hello, what could you do with 3 hours back in your day? Right? I have another client who just onboarded a team member to help with some things that somebody else could help with so she could do some of the CEO stuff that only she could do that she wasn't having time for. Like now, this vision is moving forward, right? So if you want to multiply your time and your team's time like a CEO, then you are definitely going to want to apply for one of those time scaling strategy sessions because we will look at where these are right now and how can we make them scalable, right? You will have gaps. I still, have to go back in and shore up the gaps, right? You will have opportunities, ways you can take it to the next level, like I shared earlier, right? So if you want to grab one of those, let me see if I can drop two links in the chat. I'm going to give you guys the dashboard link, which has got the link to get into the community and things like that, as well as the link to apply for one of those. Okay, so what is your homework today? And then we're right at the top of the hour. So I did yesterday is we stayed on for a few extra minutes for some in real time questions. If you look at the bottom of that page, where are we? Here we go. I'm calling this your scalable SOPs top three. Okay, now you don't have to create the whole thing, but I want you to think about what are the three systems that you would want to create next. And all you have to do is what is the system, right? So like this one was follow up. Who is going to be doing it right away? Is it you? And then if you think you might have a team member down the road do it, then make sure you make a note of that so you can start thinking and working towards that. And when, does this, when do you want to have this SOP done and in play? Okay, so again, this is where I said, like, you don't have to do, overhaul everything and build every system tonight and stay up all night doing this. You could, but I want you to at least identify what are the first three that I think I want to create, right? And start getting your brain thinking about what are the things I do on a regular basis that it would make it faster if I had everything in one place, or this would make it easier to hand off to somebody else, or this is something that I always like kind of forget pieces of it. And so this would help simplify it, or, like kind of pay attention to, those types of things to help you know where to start. And don't overthink, like, well, I don't know, I got 10. Okay, then just pick three, right? And your homework is to come over into the community and share one of them. If you want to share all three, great, right? Maybe you're like, okay, it's my visibility system, it's my leads system, and it's my onboarding new client system because one flows right into the next. Perfect, right? Who are you anticipating right now is going to do each one of those? And when do you want to have that system built so that that way it's starting to scale your time? Okay. Any questions on the homework? Here's where you can hear about it and think about it, 10%. You can write stuff down today, 42%. You can actually apply it to your business and share it, 76%. And then for those of you who want the 95%, because you got accountability, you're the ones who are going to be grabbing those calls because you're like, okay, I'm doing this thing because I don't have time to waste and I can't afford to just keep, like hanging out at the level that I'm at because I know that God's called me to bigger things. So, all right. Any other questions? I would love to stay on. Tomorrow, we are going to, like, we've already looked at the schedules part of thing, when we're doing it. We looked at the systems, what we're doing. Now we're going to look at the strategies. And again, this is not what's my email strategy, what's my marketing strategy, although that can be part of it. This is like bigger picture, like where am I going? Like, what's my bigger growth goal, right? And I want you to really think as you come in tomorrow, how do I want to finish the year strong? Because we are going to look at how all three of these pull together to help you get there, right? What's your roadie by the end of the year? Like we can make that happen in the next 3 months before the holidays hit when you have these things in place. Okay, so for anyone who's on live now, questions. Carol has a question. Do we need overarching SOPs for marketing or specific ones for different sub functions? Can you be more? It would depend, Carol, on, like, are you talking about like marketing in general, and then you've got email, and then you have, like, some other types of things? Are you able to unmute or share a little bit more about what you mean?
Here, both, I think. So would you have a general one? Because obviously marketing is a big area. So would you have a general one? I feel like this is how we do marketing. So that, something around use the brand voice, do this, do that, and then have specific ones that flow from that for specific areas of marketing, like email, posting on socials, doing other things, you
Yeah,
know,
yeah, that's a great
how it
question,
would work.
Carol. Yeah. Well, I mean, again, you're the CEO, so I always say you decide what's going to make the most
Mm.
sense and what's going to simplify things. When I'm hearing what you're talking about, the this is my marketing vision is kind of more of a vision thing. And now, like, here's the system to make the email happen. That would be like an email management system. Like, here's a system to get the podcast out or to do the YouTube post or to, post on social. So I could see that as separate ones. I mean, and again, you could, or you could, and when you see the little, when you see my little tour on the back end, you'll see everything is set up in columns. So it could be that the whole thing is marketing, and one column is social, and one platform of social, and one column is email or something like that. So there are different ways, and here's where you can get creative. So there's not a right or wrong, but it's how do I simplify it and make it so that it's this easy to follow process. And here's what I love. The system that I use, you guys, when a card is, as I drag it to different columns, I have it automated so that it will mark it as done. So like once I get done with this call, I will move that over to the done column and it will put a line through it, which feels really good for those of you who like to cross things off, like and feel like you did something. And then guess what? Because we're doing this again tomorrow, I will drag it to tomorrow and it will unmark it as done. So that way I'm not having to like rewrite my list again or whatever. Like, so anyway, Carol, if you had one, for like each of these categories, then as they're done and you go to reset them, you can make it so that it creates them as it, like it's fresh and new again. So lots of options, but I like how you're thinking about that for sure. All right. If you hire someone, you need the vision too. Yes, you do, right? Which is why, especially tomorrow when we talk about the bigger growth strategies, like as CEOs, we have to have that 30,000 foot view of our business, not just the in the weeds. How many of you feel like you spend more time in the weeds and like, what's just the next thing in front of me that I have to get past, right? You can't see the forest for the trees because it's like right there, right? And yes, Lorian, when you bring on a team, you will also need to bring them into that vision. And that vision is then going to get fleshed out in the systems. So, yeah. Any other questions from people who are on live?
I have kind of a general question that, and it's more because I don't know what everyone's businesses are, so this may be something that helps you too. I'm gonna tell you the answer is gonna be far more than we can get into right now. But just generally speaking, because we are now moving into the vision of an in-person business, not just an online portion. So like we're in this weird, I'm sitting there going, okay, so what SOPs do we actually need for what we're doing right now? While we also have a lot of one-offs that are going to be happening as we do research and like locate places and all that, and then build new SOPs. Like, does
Hmm.
that make sense?
Yeah.
Like how to
Yeah.
like think about it?
Yes. And again,
Yeah.
this is where it's thinking in a scaling way, not just what's just how do I do this task, right? So I think you hit right on it, Emmy. Like one category of them is what do I need right now to do the thing that I actually need to do now that is the season of business that I'm in. Right? So like I would build those out first because that's what's going to keep things moving, which is going to move towards those other things, right? Then, like what I just heard you say is eventually you want to be at this, at this far end place, we'll kind of say, right? So once we get there, we'll have different systems and things like that that we need. But once I have the built out what I'm already doing now, what I need now, that next step, it sounds like there's like research and there's like this is like it's becoming a project, right? So here's where how I would do it. And again, there's different, it's not the only way to do it, but I would do it is like the things that are in the here and now would go on my main dashboard because these are things that are happening on a daily, weekly, or monthly basis. And then I would create a project board that's basically its own that is just about this research process. And so I've got a step. So say, for example, you're looking for locations. So you could create a card in there that has all the steps that you want to take for every location that you look at. So now I don't have to reinvent the wheel, right? I just duplicate that card. And then when I find a property or when I start the process with that property, I can just go write down the things in there and move that card down the line, for, this process of what I'm needing to find. So is that helpful? Because that's more of like a project versus like this is just stuff I need to do to keep the wheels moving forward right now. Okay,
Yeah, that helps.
good. And this is also why it's really helpful to get other people's eyes on your stuff, right? Like, how could I do this? Like, it makes sense in my head, or I can't make sense of it in my head. Like, Lisa, how do I like actually, put this in a way that is A, going to make sense and make sense to somebody else if somebody else is actually coming in here too. So, yeah, I love it. All right. Well, thanks for joining me for day two. I want you to starting to think in systems. Okay, what am I doing that I do on some kind of regular basis that could become part of a system? Right? What are those things that I'm doing on a regular basis that somebody else could do? And I'm not the only person who can do them. Like start thinking strategically and scalability, right? And systematically as you're doing things. And, again, we don't have to build them all today, but like start identifying what are the next three that I want to start building out. How do we decide what the roadie is for each SOP? I love that question. Well, first of all, the fact that you're asking the question means that you understand that it needs to have a roadie attached to it, right? So if you already, if you can already tell, like, on this one example, right, we said we wanted to book 3 calls a week, right? So that was the goal in the follow-up process. And these aren't just like connect calls. Like, I don't even know this person. I have no idea if they'd even be interested. These are actually people who are like already ready. I've had conversation or qualifying, conversations or questions or messages or stuff like that, right? So here's where either you go off what your current numbers are and just say, I want to keep this consistent. Or you set a goal because what happens is a lot of business owners are not actually tracking their roadie, right? And so that then you're like, I don't even know what is good. Is one is 2 good or is 20 good? So it may be like you need to like set a number and then like after a couple of weeks or a month, then you go in and reevaluate. Like, was that number too high or too low? Or so that's what I would do is let's just kind of like we don't want to set the bar so high that it feels, impossible because you want to be hitting this roadie consistently when you or this person is doing the system. So Yeah. Sometimes there are industry standards for things, Micaiah, so it depends on what it is. But again, each person's business is different as well. So just because there's an industry standard may not mean that, you may have your audience does that more or less or things like that. So it's going to be a little bit of an experimentation, right? But at least attaching a number to it is going to give you something to work towards, and then you can evaluate that number. So all right. So I'm glad you guys joined us. I will see you tomorrow where we're going to talk about those time scaling strategies, those how to map out your growth and not just set the goal that feels really far away and I don't even know how to get there. And then if you're able to join me on Friday, I added a bonus session of how do we put all three of these together? And how does this whole thing called the roadie method like tie in all three of these so that you are really scaling your time and also scaling your business in your results, in your revenue, in your reach, whatever it is that you're wanting to see multiply. Okay, so I will see you guys over inside the community between now and then. If you have any questions, pop them over there and share this out with somebody when you get this replayed, and we'll see you tomorrow.